Hello and welcome to Back to the Science Fiction. Today we're going to be talking about the strange similarity between flat earthers and Letby persecutors. So the way flat earth came about, it was a satirical dig at the science community. A few years back, it was round about the time of where sort of global warming was being pushed by science, and it's based on the fact that the Copernican theory, which is that the Earth revolves around the Sun, can't actually be proved, and it's just a model. Obviously you can infer it using lots of different experiments, but ultimately I don't think it's actually even been proved today. I could be wrong, but it's based on that, where if something's not provable, you can come up with any sort of theory, and based on depending on what you're trying to prove, you could use science and statistics to prove your point as to whatever your agenda is. So there's that phrase, that saying that goes, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. And it was basically the flat earth thing was a sort of dig at the climate scientists who were like cherry picking various parts of data to prove their agenda in science. And then it took off from there, where and this is the interesting thing about flat Earth. So that they would cherry pick hilariously, satirically, formulas and things that quote unquote prove the Earth is flat, and some people actually started to believe it, which is just going to prove the point that you can convince people of anything, and then the people who started to believe it would contribute their own findings and bias experiments into, and that's how it sort of grew. And what is very much similar is the Lucy Letby case. So the way it's come about, you get this idea that someone happens to be on shift for a lot of the deaths, and they've sort of worked backwards and said, okay, rather than finding anyone rather than finding a murder, they've sort of worked backwards and found a large and found a murder where there was no murder, and even come up with a method of murder that is itself not falsifiable, not provable. So it's like a religion. So the method of murder was literally thin air, using air, and there's no way to prove that they didn't use air. It's like that old adage where you can kill someone with an ice dagger, and then it melts away, and there's no evidence, but they've done the same thing with this injecting of air, where she doesn't have to get the air from anywhere, and obviously it disappears, and there's no way of you proving otherwise. And I mean, if let's say it wasn't Lucy Letby, who happened to be on shift, if you replaced the name Lucy Letby with, say, one of the other nurses, Melanie Taylor or something, if you just replace the name, there's no amount of there's nothing that would point in one nurse's way towards another. Like all the evidence of this is the thing, there was no evidence. And so I understand on Tuesday they're going to Lucy Letby's defence is going to be proving innocence, but the problem with proving a negative is, well, they say it's impossible to prove a negative. So in a normal say murder case, all of the normal things don't seem to apply in this situation. So if you were trying to get someone off the hook, if you were trying to prove someone's innocence, well, you could find the real killer. Well, you can't do that because no murder actually took place. Well, okay, what if we proved that the death was natural causes? Well, they already done post-mortems and they already came up as natural causes. Well, what if you found an alibi? Well, we've got Lucy's alibi in that she was where she was supposed to be at work, and everyone could account for where she was. And so there's actually, how can you prove if the prosecution never actually presented any evidence in the first place? How can you actually disprove anything the prosecution presented when they never presented anything? So you're left in this complete catch-22 situation. I mean, what do you do when the jury, despite having been presented with no actual evidence, have said guilty? I mean, what do you do? But the other interesting thing is the sensible, the most likely hypothesis of, I'm not even going to say it's not. We know it wasn't an excess number of deaths on a national level, but just a local spike in deaths. The sensible reason for that occurring is just general failings in the hospital, and the outlandish, completely outlandish claim is that someone of good nature suddenly turned into a serial killer just for I don't know, a year or something, but only killed certain babies. I mean, what they haven't mentioned throughout the year was, and I presume there were lots of other babies even throughout that period that Lucy actually cared for and got well. I'm sure it wasn't, well, even with their argument of, which we know wasn't true, that 100% of the babies that died was Lucy. Even that, well, that's not true. But even if that was what they were arguing, I don't think it's been mentioned that was it 100% of babies that Lucy looked after. And I mean, we haven't heard from. I presume she, throughout a year, she would have looked after more than 7 babies. And these other babies who done well don't get mentioned or anything. And so the crazy. This is the irony. The crazy and outlandish conspiracy theory of there being a sudden mass murderer has become the mainstream narrative, and yet those who are going for the more sensible option, the more likely option, are seen as the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. I mean, there's got to be some sort of irony there. I mean, I'm actually perfectly willing to believe that in 1947 in Roswell, perhaps an alien spaceship did crash land, but telling me that this nurse suddenly became a serial killer just for a year, just for a few of the babies that she looked after, for no reason. No, it's ridiculous. It's too far-fetched even for me, and yet those who have gone for the sensible option are seen as the kooks and the cultists and the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. I'm sorry, but I think some people need to take a look in the mirror.